The ground outside is frozen solid, you can hear it crunch underfoot like broken glass. Your breath fogs up instantly. And yet, right there, sunk into the earth maybe 4 feet down, is a banana tree. Leaves unfurled. Deep, waxy green. Growing. Not surviving, actually growing, in a climate that should have killed it 3 months ago. I stood there staring at it for a full minute before I said anything. Because nothing in my gardening education had prepared me for that moment. And the thing that made it possible cost me exactly $30 and a weekend of digging. That structure, that simple, almost embarrassingly low-tech hole in the ground, is called a suntrap pit. And by the time this video is over, you're going to understand not just how to build one, but why nobody ever told you this was possible. Let's be honest about something. If you've ever tried to grow anything remotely tropical in a temperate or cold climate, you've probably been told the same thing over and over. You can't. Or maybe the softer version, you can, but you'll need a greenhouse. A real one. With heating systems. Polycarbonate panels. Electrical hookups. Climate controllers. You know what a mid-range hobby greenhouse with heating costs. Somewhere between $1,500 and $4,000, depending on size. That's before you buy a single seed. The industry around cold climate growing has spent decades convincing gardeners that warmth is a commodity, something you purchase, not something you engineer from the earth itself. And that belief has kept millions of people locked out of growing their own food in the very climates where food security matters most. Think about that for a second. The people in northern Canada, Scandinavia, Highland Central Asia, the mountain regions of South America, historically, they didn't have propane heaters. They didn't have Amazon delivery for tropical seedlings. And yet many of these cultures did grow things that had no business growing there. Not because they cheated the climate. Because they understood something about how the earth itself holds and moves heat, something that modern horticulture quietly buried under a century of product sales. The frustration you felt every spring when the last frost kills your starts, every autumn when you pull out plants that never quite reached their potential, that frustration is real. And it's not a skill problem. It's an information problem. Stay with me, because I'm going to fix that. The technique I'm about to describe traces back at least 2,000 years, and possibly much further. The earliest well-documented versions appear in the agricultural records of ancient Persia, in the mountain valleys surrounding what is now northern Iran and Afghanistan. In those regions, elevation pushed winters below freezing regularly, yet merchants and farmers needed to grow citrus, specifically because citrus commanded extraordinary trade value on the Silk Road. They couldn't import warmth. So they imported an idea, one that came from observing how the land itself behaved. They noticed that certain natural depressions in the earth, particularly those with south-facing exposures, held warmth long after surrounding ground had frozen. Animals sheltered in them. Snow melted faster there. Seeds germinated weeks earlier than anywhere else. And some farmer, unnamed, forgotten, brilliant, decided to make one deliberately. The structure they developed was called, in various Persian and later Arabic agricultural texts, something loosely translated as a sheltered earth cradle. The walls were the key. Dig a pit, orient it toward the sun, and suddenly you have something that behaves like a thermal lens. Sunlight enters the opening during the day, strikes the dark soil at the bottom, and that energy converts to radiant heat, heat that the surrounding earth walls then hold, because soil has a thermal mass roughly equivalent to concrete. The pit doesn't just catch warmth. It stores it. Through the night, through cloud cover, through wind, the heat bleeds out slowly, maintaining temperatures inside the pit that can run 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the ambient air just a few feet away. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between a dead plant and a thriving one. Now here's something that will genuinely surprise you, and I want you to hold on to this because it changes how you think about everything that follows. A 2019 study conducted by researchers at Wageningen University in the Netherlands, one of the most respected agricultural institutions in the world, documented what they called passive thermal pit cultivation in traditional Kazakh and Uzbek farming communities. These were communities that had maintained the technique continuously, without interruption, for generations. The researchers found that within properly constructed earth pits, minimum nighttime temperatures during hard frost events were consistently 12 to 22 degrees Fahrenheit higher than ambient ground level temperatures, without any artificial heat source whatsoever. Just earth. Just geometry. Just the physics of how thermal mass interacts with solar radiation. The study concluded that this technique was significantly underutilized in modern sustainable agriculture applications. That's academic language for, why aren't more people doing this? So let's get into exactly why it works, because understanding the mechanism is what separates someone who builds one of these and gets mediocre results from someone who builds one and harvests passion fruit in Wisconsin in October. There are two primary forces at work inside a suntrap pit. The first is solar gain amplification. Think of the pit like a bowl pointed at the sky. When the sun is low in winter, which is exactly when you need heat most, a standard flat garden receives sunlight at a shallow angle, maybe 15 to 25 degrees above the horizon. At that angle, much of the sun's energy reflects off the surface rather than penetrating it. It's like shining a flashlight almost parallel to a table. Most of the light just slides off. But tilt the surface toward the sun, drop it into a pit, and that same low winter sun hits the bottom and sides at a steeper, more direct angle. You're not getting more sunlight. You're using it more efficiently. Early measurements from permaculture researchers in Vermont found that a properly oriented pit captured up to 40% more usable solar energy per square foot than a flat garden bed in the same location during winter months. The second mechanism is thermal mass regulation, and this one is where it gets genuinely poetic. Soil doesn't heat and cool like air. Air temperature can swing 30 degrees in an hour. Soil at depth is profoundly stable. The earth below 3 feet maintains near constant temperature year-round, driven by geothermal heat from below rather than atmospheric changes from above. When you dig a pit, you expose that stable thermal reservoir. The walls and floor of your pit become a slow-release heat battery. During the day, they absorb. At night, they radiate. The air inside the pit sits in this thermal embrace, buffered from the wild swings happening just a few feet away on the surface. Add even a simple cover, a sheet of polycarbonate, an old window frame, even stretched clear plastic, and you trap the humid, warm air the soil releases, creating a microclimate that behaves like a climate zone 1 or even 2 full zones warmer than your official USDA or Köppen classification. Here's the part most people don't anticipate. Humidity. When soil breathes, and all living soil breathes, it releases water vapor. In a covered pit, that vapor doesn't escape into the dry winter air. It circulates. It condenses on the cover and drips back down. The plants inside experience something close to a subtropical humidity profile even while the world outside is cracking dry with cold. For tropical plants, this matters enormously. A banana isn't just killed by cold, it's killed by the combination of cold and desiccation, the way frost pulls moisture out of leaves and roots simultaneously. Inside a properly humidified suntrap pit, you've neutralized both threats at once. That's the insight most indoor greenhouse systems miss. They heat without humidifying, and they humidify without warming the root zone. The earth pit does both, passively, for free. And here's your what moment for this section. The walls of an earth pit are slightly alkaline due to mineral leaching from surrounding rock and clay, which creates a soil chemistry at the perimeter that naturally suppresses certain fungal root pathogens, the exact pathogens most likely to kill tropical plants stressed by cool conditions. You didn't just build a warmer growing space. You accidentally created a chemically protective one. That's not something any greenhouse catalog will tell you, because there's no product to sell you for it. It just happens. It's what the earth does when you work with its structure instead of trying to override it. Alright. Let's build this thing. And I mean that literally. I'm going to walk you through exactly what I did for $30, and what you can do with even less if you have access to free materials. First, the site selection. This is the most important decision and the one most people get wrong. The pit must face as close to true south as possible in the northern hemisphere, or true north if you're in the southern hemisphere. Even a 20-degree deviation east or west will reduce your winter solar gain noticeably. Before you dig anything, spend one clear winter day watching where shadows fall on your chosen site. The location that receives the most continuous direct sunlight between 10 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, that's your spot. Not where summer sun is best. Winter sun. They're different, and that difference is everything. Now for the dig. The optimal pit dimensions for a single-person build, manageable, effective, and efficient, are approximately 4 feet deep, 4 feet wide, and 6 to 8 feet long. Depth is the most critical measurement. Shallower than 3 feet and you lose most of the thermal mass advantage. Deeper than 5 feet without structural reinforcement and you risk wall collapse in loose or sandy soils. 4 feet hits the sweet spot for most temperate climates. The length should run east to west, so the long wall faces south. That south-facing wall is your solar collector. Some builders angle it slightly. Instead of a vertical wall, they cut it at a backward slope of about 60 to 70 degrees, to better catch low winter sun. That's an advanced modification worth considering if you're comfortable shaping the excavated walls. What you'll need: a spade, a pickaxe if your soil has clay or rock, about $20 worth of salvaged or new clear polycarbonate panels or old window frames for the cover. I got mine from a local reuse center for $12, some scrap lumber or cinder blocks for a simple frame to hold the cover, and that's essentially it. The remaining $8 went toward a bag of coconut coir to mix into the bottom foot of soil, which improves drainage and prevents waterlogging. You do not need to purchase soil amendments unless your existing soil is genuinely terrible. The pit's own microclimate will improve soil biology over time on its own. Now, 2 things most people get catastrophically wrong. First, drainage. If water pools at the bottom of your pit, you don't have a growing environment, you have a cold bath that will rot every root you put in it. Before you plant anything, fill the bottom 6 inches with gravel or broken terracotta, then cover that with a layer of coarse sand, then you're planting medium. Test the drainage by pouring a full watering can into the empty pit after construction. Water should absorb or drain visibly within 15 minutes. If it's sitting, your soil is too compact and you need to break it up or add drainage material. Do not skip this step. I've seen otherwise perfect builds fail entirely because of standing water. Second mistake, covering too tightly. Counterintuitively, an airtight seal over the pit will eventually kill your plants through CO2 buildup and fungal disease. The cover needs a small ventilation gap, even 1 to 2 inches on the north edge is enough. So stale, moist air can slowly exchange with fresh air without losing significant heat. Think of it like the gap under a door in a heated room. A tiny opening maintains air quality without wasting warmth. Nail down your polycarbonate or window covers, but leave that north edge gap deliberately. It feels wrong. It's right. For an advanced variation, if you want to push the thermal performance even further, line the inside south-facing wall with dark stone or broken terracotta tiles. Dark material absorbs solar radiation more efficiently than bare soil. It's the same principle behind dark-colored road asphalt staying warm long after sunset. That lining can add another 2 to 4 degrees of nighttime retention. Some experienced builders also install a shallow buried water container, a dark plastic bin filled with water, buried flush with the pit floor, because water holds even more thermal mass than soil. During the day it heats up. At night it acts like a slow-burn radiator. Simple. Brilliant. Free if you have an old storage bin. So what happens after you build it? What does the first month actually look like? I want to be honest with you here, because there's a transition period that can feel discouraging if you're not expecting it. The first week, especially if you're building in late autumn or winter, the pit will feel cold and raw. The soil walls are still adjusting, releasing moisture, stabilizing. If you plant immediately and see slow growth or drooping leaves, that's not failure. That's the system waking up. Give it 2 weeks before you make any judgments. By week 2, you'll notice the cover fogging up on cold nights. That's condensation from the soil releasing heat, and it means the thermal exchange is working exactly as it should. By the end of the first month, if you've planted cold-sensitive tropicals, banana, papaya, even ginger, you should see active new growth rather than the stasis you'd expect from a cold-stressed plant. The roots, warmed by the earthen floor, are doing what roots do when they're comfortable, exploring, expanding, feeding. The above-ground growth follows the below-ground confidence. By month 2, in my experience, the difference between plants inside the pit and identical plants in a standard container outdoors is almost shocking. The outdoor plants are dormant or dead. The pit plants look like it's July. Have you ever grown something tropical in a cold climate before, in any kind of structure, and hit that wall where it just stops progressing? Tell me in the comments what you tried, because I want to know what you're working with. The community that builds around this kind of knowledge is genuinely one of the most knowledgeable groups of people I've found online, and your experience matters to what I build next. Here's what success looks like once the system is fully dialed in. In year 2, the soil biology inside your pit will be notably different from the soil outside it, richer, darker, more alive with microbial activity, because you've maintained warmth and humidity through the seasons that would normally kill that biological community. The pit doesn't just grow plants. Over time, it becomes a self-improving ecosystem. A living, warm pocket in the middle of winter. Something that shouldn't exist, but undeniably does. The thing that moves me most about this technique isn't the $30 price tag, though I'll admit that part is satisfying. It's the implication. The implication that somewhere back in time, a farmer, probably exhausted, probably poor, definitely not shopping from a catalog, looked at a hole in the ground and thought, I can use this. No grant funding. No university validation. No product line. Just observation and ingenuity and the willingness to trust what the earth was already offering. That knowledge passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, across languages and borders and centuries. And at some point, the chain broke. Not because the knowledge stopped working, it works better than most things built since, but because the chain of transmission got interrupted. Wars. Colonial disruption. Industrialization that made the old ways seem quaint before they'd even been properly documented. You now have that knowledge again. And here's what that means practically: the next time someone tells you that you can't grow something in your climate, that you're limited by your latitude, your frost date, your hardiness zone, you have a rebuttal. Not a theory. Not a hope. A pit, 4 feet deep, facing south, that costs $30 and maintains a growing environment that defies what your local garden center told you was possible. Share this with someone you know who's given up on cold climate growing. Someone who tried once, got burned by a late frost, and decided the effort wasn't worth it. Because what they gave up on wasn't gardening, they gave up on bad information. This is different. And if this is the kind of knowledge you want more of, the kind that was buried, works without buying anything, and gives you genuine independence, then subscribe. Because next time, I'm going to show you a water management technique used in the Atacama Desert for 3,000 years that can cut your irrigation needs by 60%, regardless of your climate. You've never heard of it. Most agronomists haven't either. And it's about to change how you think about drought gardening entirely. I'll see you in that one.